Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part, we reached Cinnabar Island and found it in a rather depressing state. But we need to move on from here to the east because Blaine has moved his gym into the Seafoam Islands. And welcome to Route 20, a usual water Pokemon you can catch here, but this route confuses me. For a lot of the Pokemon they ended up giving the trainers here in Heart Gold and SoulSilver, there are some weird choices here. For instance, we got Birdkeeper Bert here. He starts off with a new Pokemon, a Wingull. This one actually makes sense here. Water flying type, so it's weak to rock and electric, immune to ground. Ground is a 4x weakness. Wingull's got some okay speed and I think special attack for a first phase, but when it evolves, it completely changes its specialty over to physical defense and special attack. It loses basically any of the speed it had in terms of like advantage for the stage you find it at. But you get an okay enough water user out of it. Do I think there are better ones? Absolutely. But I guess if you're looking for a water type who can fly, for HM use especially, you could do a lot worse. Speed up theme this part, by the way, is Dart's theme from Legend of the Dragoon. Really good game that. I need to get to doing that at some point. And next up, it's time for another new Pokemon, one of my favorites. This is Shinx, pure electric type from Gen 4. So it is weak to ground exclusively. Shinx doesn't start out as much because it's a first phase evolution of 3. But it's got some okay physical attack for a first phase, but as you evolve it into its final phase, you get a really good physical attacker with some good special attack as well to back it up. You could do a hell of a lot worse for a physical attacker. I recommend this line a lot in main Gen 4. It's a pretty normal choice for a lot of teams, but it's a normal choice for good reason. It's a good line. Plus, it's cats, and I have a good bias towards cats. Isn't that right, cat who's currently rubbing up against my legs below my desk? Hello there, Zelda. Want to say anything for the camera? No? Alright. So let's move on to Starly. Starly's another Gen 4 Pokemon. This is the Pidgey for Gen 4. Normal flying type, so it is weak against rock, electric, and ice, but immune to ground and ghost. For first phase, it's got some okay physical attack and speed, but as you evolve it into its third phase eventually, you get more or less a very fast physical attacker. I'd say out of the normal flying type Pokemon, this is the first one I really recommend. Helping the Starly line be useful is that in Gen 4 Beyond, they started introducing a lot more really interesting moves for types that didn't have good attack choices in some cases. Like Gen 4 introduced the very famous Brave Bird that I believe this Starly line just learns by leveling up. Which is a very high damage physical move that just has high recoil as a cost. But if you're trying to do high damage, you're probably trying to one-shot Pokemon anyway, and you'll just use a potion at the end of it anyway. I like that line a lot. I recommend it. Unlike the next Pokemon, oh boy. So this particular swimmer trainer uses one of my least favorite Pokemon in the series, arguably as bad as Sunkern, if not worse because it at least doesn't get a okay enough evolution. This is Luvdisc, Generation 3 pure water type, so it's weak to grass and electric. Luvdisc has some good speed, but it doesn't have anything worth attacking, can't defend too well, doesn't have good HP. It's a cute design, and it has, I can't even say it has an okay learn set. It has some good ice type moves it can learn, as well as water HMs, but it's just a really underwhelming Pokemon. And I am admittedly of the people that really thought it deserves an evolution, and we thought we were getting one in Gen 5, but turns out Alomomola was completely unrelated, so Luvdisc is one I'd only recommend catching for Pokedex completion. It is not good. Now, what I find so weird about this route is that there's a lot of cool Pokemon here that are particularly from Gen 3 and 4. But they just feel like Pokemon they could have placed on any other route and it would have made more sense. Like, I feel like for a water route we should encounter the later gen water Pokemon, which there are a lot. Like, we don't see a Sharpedo here, I think, at all in this LP. So, what's the deal with that? Sometimes the Pokemon they choose to add to these routes just don't make sense. Speaking of not making sense, hello, god of all Pokemon, it's Bidoof. Pure normal type, so it is weak against fighting, immune to ghost. Bidoof doesn't have a lot of specialties going on. It's got an okay enough HP stat, I suppose. And when it eventually evolves into a normal water type, you get a okay physical attacker with some okay HP. the big reason you're using the Bidoof line is because they are the best HM learners, at least in Sinnoh, if not the series proper, because they can learn, let me get the exact list here, via TM. Let's see, they can learn Cut, Surf, Strength, Rock Smash, Waterfall, and the HM we still haven't gotten in the game yet, so that's 5 out of the 8. That's pretty good, that's pretty good. That just means they don't learn Whirlpool, Fly, and, what's the other one? Is that actually, now I think about it? Oh yeah, no, that is 6. They just don't learn, Whirlpool and Fly. So yeah, if you're looking for an HM user, just catch 2 of those and you'll be good probably on all HMs. Barring team composition stuff. Now, what I find weird about this route as well, it has, I think, the only 2 underwater hidden items the dowsing machine can find in the game. The Deep Sea Tooth, and I believe on the top route's the Deep Sea Scale. Those are held items for a very particular Pokemon known as Clam Pearl, that when you do certain things with them, I think it's evolving them while they're holding it, evolves them into either Huntail or Gorbis. We're not ever tackling that though, but just know that they're there, I guess. Now let's talk about Shroomish. Shroomish is a Gen 3 pure grass type, weak to flying, poison, bug, fire, and ice. Okay enough defense stats for a first phase, and when you eventually evolve it into a grass fighting type, uniquely enough, you get a decent physical attacker out of it. In its initial appearance in Gen 3, just didn't have a good learn set for it. Nowadays, I'd say the Shroomish line is worth a look for the learn set that its evolution gets, but are there better Pokemon for that role? Probably. Yeah, the grass type alone just gives it way too many weaknesses. Like, there's not usually a bad type to use on your team. Grass needs a good subtyping for it to be useful for me, though, because inherently it just has so many weaknesses. And, like, so do ground and rock, but those at least fulfill a very particular niche of, like, high defense and all that. Grass usually doesn't. Grass is usually specialized in status effects, which isn't much to my playstyle. Welcome to the Seafoam Islands, though. This place is an Ice-type Pokemon dungeon that we're not actually exploring the dungeon part of this time because we're here for Blaine's gym. Yo, legend in the making. This gym has many trainers and rocks in the way from the rebuilding. It sure won't be easy to get to Blaine. But keep you cool and defeat the trainers one by one and you'll surely find the path. Now, I forget the exact way that this gym works. I think it's that you defeat a trainer and they move one space backwards, so you need to kind of manipulate your movement to get them to go the right way. But in case you mess up, I believe you're always guaranteed a route to Blaine. Overall, this is a much different gym than it was in the original game. In the original game, it was just Blaine and the yo, legend in the making guy. Because they just turned the lower cave entirely into a one-room area that didn't link to the main Seafoam Islands at all in the original game. But let's talk about Pokemon. That was Arcanine, pure fire type, so it is weak against, that's ground, rock, and water. Arcanine is a fantastic fire type from Gen 1. High physical attack, high special attack, very high speed, and in Gen 1 it was one of the only Pokemon who could learn extreme speed, so you could get a really fast attacker out of that. The only problem is, if you want to use it, not only do you need to get a Growlithe, which can be hard depending on your version, but you need to get a Firestone, which, depending on your version, can be rough, especially here in any version of Gen 2, because, barring the first one, you have to rely on the Pokegear stuff, which isn't great. And you have to get that Growlithe up to a high enough level, because, as I've mentioned before, Stone evolutions don't usually learn too many moves. With that said, let's next move on to the next Pokemon. This is Torkoal, a pure fire type from Generation 3, so they're weak to ground, rock, and water. Torkoal's an excellent physical defender. Unfortunately, the main weakness of it is special, and its special defense is only okay, and it's also very slow. It's got some interesting moves it can learn, namely like Inferno in some of the later gens, I think, which is a pretty good fire-type move despite its low PP counts because it always burns the target. Torkoal's okay, just kind of hard to find in a lot of cases. Let me look at the actual location list here because I don't remember exactly where you can find it in Generation 3. Yeah, Fiery Path, the Safari Zone here in Heart Gold, SoulSilver. Yeah, kind of hard to find in a lot of cases if you're not just trading it up from someplace. Next up here we got Numel. This is the pre-evolution from Camerupt, in which it evolves into at level 33, fire ground type, so it's weak against ground and water. Water's a 4 times weakness, but at least it's immune to electric. I went over what Camerupt was like earlier, so that's an okay Pokemon that I just never really have a spot for. Numel doesn't have anything super standout about it though, because it's just the first phase. Kind of unfortunate that, but oh well. And next up we got another new Pokemon, at least they're showing a lot of new ones. This is Ninetales. This evolves from Vulpix when exposed to a Firestone. Pure fire type, so it is weak against ground, rock, and water. Ninetales is sort of the defending equivalent to Arcanine's attacking. As well, its physical defense is just okay. It's got good special defense and speed. Its learn set's also pretty good. It really just depends on your playstyle, whether or not you prefer Ninetales to Arcanine. I personally prefer Arcanine nowadays, but Ninetales not without its values. And that's about the end of the gym. Because we've already seen a Magcargo, and then it's time for Blaine. And Blaine, honestly, isn't going to be sticking around that long because his fight's kind of weird. But it's at least a notable increase in one particular value.
Hey, you! My gym on Cinnabar Island was burned down by the eruption. But I will not give up. Take a look at this cave. We have turned it into a gym, and I'm still acting as a gym leader. I'll give you the gym badge if you manage to defeat me. Are you ready? Here we go.
Blaine's biggest interest to me is that he's an actual level increase compared to the other gym leaders, because all his Pokemon are in their mid to late 50s. It took 7 gyms, but hey look, we're finally back on level parity. Starting off, he's throwing out his Magcargo, Flame Body for its ability, so if you do physical attacks, prepare for a potential burn. Overheat, Sunny Day, Smog, and Rock Slide. Overheat is actually a very common move in this particular match. And Overheat is a very risky fire-type move, because when you use it, it does extraordinarily high damage. Even higher than when it was first introduced. But then it lowers your special attack by 2 stages, so it's a pretty risk versus reward kind of deal. Next up, he's sending out his Magmar, still got Flame Body for its ability. Thunder Punch, Confuse Ray, Overheat, and Sunny Day. And I should also note, every single one of his Pokemon are holding a White Herb. The White Herb is a one-use item in battle that restores the lowered stat stages of a Pokemon, so it's meant to give them 2 full power uses of Overheat. And finally, he's throwing out his Rapidash, Flash Fire for its ability, so you can't damage it with fire-type attacks. Quick Attack, Bounce, Overheat, and Flare Blitz. Bounce is probably the biggest pain here. Bounce is a 2-turn move that's not super strong or accurate. The big thing is, A, gives you a turn of immunity, barring certain moves and abilities, ignoring that. But it has a very high chance, it's like a 1 in 3 chance of paralyzing the target. So it can be a surprisingly valuable move. The problem is it's also a surprisingly hard move to learn, because I think as of even modern day, only about 40 Pokemon learn it by leveling up. Some more by move tutors here and there, a couple by events. But I don't think it became a TM until like Gen 7 or 8, so you're really pressed for choices when it comes to what to use this with. Like I think some of the starters can, like I want to say like the Torchic line eventually can, the Marill line can, and then a couple others here and there. If you can get it, but if you can't, you're just kind of out of luck, unfortunately. It's a hard move to come across. Unlike Blaine, who is a very easy gym leader to beat if you have even a single water type, especially one that has a high special attack and surf. Blaine's always kind of just been disappointing, comparatively. And I can't exactly place why. It's not like fire types are hard to beat, it's more so that water types can just be surprisingly powerful.
Awesome! I've burned out! Take this volcano badge.
Alright, 7 down, technically 15 down, 1 to go. And what do you think we're doing with the rest of the part, huh?
Here, I'll give you this too. It's called Overheat. It has a slight drawback, but it's powerful and well worth it.
I'd usually agree. It really depends on what you're trying to do in the battle. Like, if you're gonna swap out, worth using.
I did lose this time, but I'm going to win next time. When I rebuild my Cinnabar Gym, we'll have to hold a rematch.
Although there are some Pokemon, like I think the Chimchar line in particular can take really good advantage of overheat because that's a case where you can have 2 fire type moves and have a good reason for it. Like you can have overheat for the special attack and then something like fire punch for the physical attack. If you want to battle me, for real, come to Viridian Gym. I'll be waiting for you. Since we have the first 7 Kanto gym badges, we can now go after our 16th and final gym badge over in Viridian City. And this gym can be a little bit of a problem. Mostly because, like with Blaine, this is the first one where the levels are actively probably going to be above you if you've played through Kanto as I have. So be a little careful in here. Also, an old mechanic returns for this. Yo, legend in the making. The floor here is unstable, so you should put away your Pokemon. Now. The gym leader is a guy who battled the champion 3 years ago. He's no pushover. Give it everything you got. So the gimmick here is arrow tiles, like the Rocket HQ in our first adventures through Kanto. You step on one, you get sent that direction. It's a maze without the walls being immediately obvious. Can it be hard to process which direction you're gonna go because the screen ratio and all that? In some cases, yes. Just take your time and try to observe your surroundings is my best bet. Like, take a moment like I tend to and pause. Don't worry about going after every battle, I'm only doing that for experience points. This gym can be interesting, especially because it actively has more of a battle gimmick than most of the other ones do. But first, let's talk about the new Pokemon this trainer's gonna have. This is Licky Licky. This is a Generation 4 evolution of Lickitung that evolves when Lickitung is leveled up while knowing the move Rollout. Pure normal type, so it is weak against fighting, immune to Ghost. Licky Licky gives Lickitung some actual use, as it has really high HP and some okay defense stats on top of that, and because you have Rollout and some other moves it can learn, it's not an awful type. The biggest problem is, to me, I like my normal types to either be super physically strong and slow, or to have a subtype that I can at least take advantage of some super effective moves with, because normal types might be the jack of all trades, but they really are the master of none in a lot of cases. Have I used Licky Licky? Yes. Would I recommend it? Yes. Are there better normal types? Potentially. It really just depends on who you are. If anything, I'm at least glad it exists, because it really took until like Gen 3 or 4 for Pokemon Company to go, if a Pokemon's only going to be one stage, they either have to have some typing that makes them hard to deal with, an ability that's unique, or a stat that's worth a damn, because some of the early gen single-stage evolutions just were not worth having around in any regard, barring maybe like HM usage. Now, the main gimmick of this gym, outside of its arrow tiles, is that most of the trainers have a Pokemon that know a move known as Trick Room. Trick Room's an interesting one, in that it kind of reverses the way battles work. It reverses the move order within every priority list, so Pokemon with a lower speed stat will move first. So it gives Pokemon that are very slow, like Ursaring, or Beware, or a couple of other super high attack Pokemon that are slow to compensate for it, a lot of potential that they just wouldn't have before this move was introduced. It's one of the few like battle-altering moves that I always considered using because it's just that ridiculous. It does have a turn limit on it, like weather effects do. It lasts about 3 to 4 turns from memory, and there are also some abilities that completely overwrite things like this anyway, but it's worth having around. I recommend it a lot. The big problem is you probably have to swap out into a Pokemon to take good advantage of it, which can be a little tricky to do well. But that said, this double battle also has a new Pokemon for us, and it's the last one for the part. One of these two ace trainers is going to throw out Porygon 2. This is a Generation 2 evolution of Porygon, which it evolves from while traded while holding the upgrade item we got at Silphco. Pure normal type still, so it's weak to fighting, immune to Ghost. Porygon 2 is interesting that it has some really good special attack and some good defenses to back it up and an okay learn set. But its evolution that it would gain in Gen 4 completely swaps focus to be pure special attacker with much lower defenses to compensate. So if you're going for the Porygon line, both evolutions have merit. It just really depends on whether or not you want someone that's more focused on attacking or someone who's focused on attacking but can also take a shot worth a damn. I like the Porygon line, what they did with it in Gen 2 Beyond. I kind of wish they did more evolutions, but I understand why they kind of capped off with Porygon Z here in Gen 4, because if they had made the next evolution Porygon 3, people would have just gone, well, when's Porygon 4? I get it. 3 evolutions really does feel like it should be the cap. Or no, 2 evolutions, just 3 stages of Pokemon. Really does feel like it should be the cap for Pokemon, period. Different forms like Rotom is one thing, but evolutions 2 should be the max overall. It's not like Digimon where, from memory, like Agumon is the 3rd stage of a Digimon, but Agumon has 5 branching paths you can evolve it onto, and like 2 or 3 of those have like 2 or 3 other different branching paths you can send them along to like result in like 8 or 9 different final Digimon with like 12 others in the route to get to those? Digimon is much more complicated with evolution than Pokemon ever has been. And given Pokemon's generally younger target audience, I'm glad. Because it really feels like Pokemon's always aimed at the same group, it's just that older fans stuck with it, whereas Digimon kept the target audience the same in that they aimed at the same group as that group aged. Like, Digimon nowadays still has, like, target audience for kids, but they also heavily market towards the people who watched the original few shows growing up. In a radically different way, but it's interesting to see how they parallel each other at the same time. Hell, I wouldn't mind seeing Pokemon eventually doing its own little, like, Pokemon Survive kind of thing, where they have just a plot-focused visual novel with some other elements stacked onto it. That could be really cool to see. Will they ever do it? Probably not. We were surprised to finally get a Pokemon Snap sequel, let alone a Mystery Dungeon remake, because barring, like, Go and Masters, Pokemon's been kind of lacking on the side games here and there. Well, no, I guess Unite exists now, and that's been getting some good traction. And there was that... What was that weird, like, voxel-based game, Pokemon Quest, that they tried to make a thing and I don't think did super well? Pokemon's been doing side games, just not, like, the core ones that people remember a lot from the early to mid-2000s anymore. One day, Pokemon Ranger will return from war and give me Pokemon Ranger 4. Although, I guess, to be fair to Pokemon Company in that case, they really should, I guess more harsh on them, they really shouldn't have released 2 Pokemon Rangers in Generation 4. Like, Almia's great, Guardian Signs is great. Guardian Signs probably should have been held off until it could be a Gen 5 game, because having Gen 5 Pokemon probably could have boosted that game's sales a bit. And, like, I've talked with my buddy Anthony about this a lot. Ranger could be tough to market and make nowadays as well, because, while, like, the Switch and mobile phones have touchscreens nowadays, not a lot of games use that feature a lot, at least on the Switch. So making a Pokemon Ranger game for that without, like, directly marketing it with a stylus in every cartridge or in every box could be kind of hard to do. I kind of get why we haven't seen one. I still want one, though. It really was my favorite of the spin-offs, if only because it felt truly unique, despite it also being, like, just them showing off the major gimmick of the DS. Whereas Mystery Dungeon, there's been a shitload of Mystery Dungeon games like She-Ren even on the Super Nintendo. Conquest is just a tactics RPG, all that kind of stuff. Yo, finally got here, huh? I wasn't in the mood at Cinnabar, but now I'm ready to battle you. You're telling me you conquered all the gyms in Johto? Johto's gyms are that pathetic? Don't worry about it. I'll know if you're good or not by battling you right now. Like with Blaine, I want to give credit to Blue. He actually has levels worth a damn for the point we're at. In fact, he's higher than most of my team in a lot of cases. Starting off, he's throwing out his Executor. Chlorophyll for its ability, so if there's a sunny day out there for some reason, it can have its speed boosted. Leaf Storm, Psychic, Hypnosis, and Trick Room. In fact, I've had a lot of cases where I think Blue will actively just use Executor for Trick Room and then swap out depending on the Pokemon you first throw out. With that said, it's an Executor. Breathe some fire on it, you'll probably do enough damage to either one-shot it or get close enough. But yeah, like, every one of Blue's Pokemon is mid to late 50s, just like Blaine. In a way that feels good to fight at the point in the game we fight him? He was like this in the original game as well. But this is why I make the case for Kanto should have been more linear than just go do the first 7 gyms, then do blue. Because a level curve goes a long way to make an RPG satisfying. It's part of why Final Fantasy VIII can be very hit or miss with people, because since enemies level up with you, you never feel like you're getting truly stronger because the enemies are also always getting stronger in a way that just doesn't feel organic. I really wish, or hope rather, if they ever do this type of thing in a Pokemon game again, like say Generation 10 has like, let's say Hoenn or Sinnoh revisitable in it and its post-game for some reason, that they force you to take a path in it that's linear with its level curve, even if it's not just, say, Gym 1 through 8. Say it's like you start at Gym 5, then you go to Gym 6, then you go to 7, 4, 3, 1, 8. Things like that. Next up, though, we got Rhydon. This has Rock Head for its ability, so it doesn't take recoil damage. Mega Horn, Stone Edge, Thunderfang, and Earthquake. That is a devastating moveset. Mega Horn's honestly one of the best Bug-type moves prior to Generation 4. If you get a Heracross, it's really good to have on that. Next up, Blue sending out his Machamp, which is a surprisingly devastating one. No guard for its ability, so no matter what you do to, like, fly up in the air or something, every move this Machamp makes will land, and every move you make will land. Dynamic Punch, Earthquake, Thunder Punch, and Stone Edge. Stone Edge and Thunder Punch are especially cruel because that counters the flying weakness of the Machamp. And Dynamic Punch is interesting, and that it's very high damage and always confuses if it lands. That if is a big if though, because it's like a 50% accurate move, so that's why No Guard is a very good ability to have on Machamp. I really wish more Pokemon gym leaders took advantage of their abilities like it seems everything does in this game with Machamps, because sometimes they go for the worst ability, and I really don't get it, because in a lot of ways to me, gym leaders are supposed to like show off the Pokemon that you can catch in that gym that are exclusive to that type. Like, Sabrina's supposed to go, alright, here's what Psychic types are like, here's what they can do. If you like them, or you hated fighting one, but you might want one on your team, go find one and see if you can make it like this. Using the wrong abilities just feels very counterintuitive to that aspect. I don't want to say the wrong abilities, because there's seldom a bad ability on Pokemon. There's sometimes ones that aren't a better fit to the Pokemon or playstyles. It's rare that there's a bad ability, especially in Gen 5 onward. The hidden abilities exist, which are usually the go-to abilities to get for them. Next up, Blue's thinning out his Arcanine, Intimidate for its ability, Roar, Dragon Pulse, Flare Blitz, and Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed is potentially worrisome there, as is Roar, because that could just make you swap out. This Pokemon's hedging all bets on outspeeding you in a lot of cases. Thankfully, again, Intimidate could be good, but I'm using a special-based water type, so kind of out of luck there, buckaroo. I've always really liked Blue, less as a character though, and more as a fight. Because I appreciate when a near endgame challenge in a Pokemon game has a team that's set up like a player would. For instance, the final fight we're going to do in this game, Blue here, Leon in Gen 8, Cynthia in Gen 4, to an extent at least. I like when they're not monotype, or at least monotype based, because it makes you feel like you're just fighting a computerized player, and that's oddly satisfying. Like, I could see myself making a team like this, and I love that. I wish they did that more often with champions and stuff, because I don't really like when they go monotype, especially with champions. Like, I love some of the characters. Like, I love Steven Stone. I love Alder. I love Iris. I don't really remember Diantha that much, but she exists. But fight-wise, they're just always a little disappointing to me because it's monotype. If I have one particular type of my team, I have a much higher advantage against you than you do against me. This really feels equal, and I appreciate that. Now, character-wise, I'll be honest, I've never really cared about the differences between friendly rivals and unfriendly rivals like Blue and Silver. Do I think some of the unfriendly rivals are better written? Yes, uncharacteristically so. But friendly rivals inherently never really upset me. But that's an entirely different topic we'll get more into probably when I eventually get to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, because that's when the first friendly rival really happens. Final Pokemon that Blue is sending out is his Gyarados. Intimidate for its ability, Ice Fang, Waterfall, Dragon Dance, and Return. And I believe every single one of these Pokemon that has Return has maxed out Friendship, so that Return's gonna hurt. especially if it uses Dragon Dance and stacks it, because that move is extraordinarily dangerous. Thankfully, water flying type, so a good discharge to the high special attack. Electric type, you're probably going to one-shot it, especially with that 4-level difference. That's Blue. I appreciate him having levels worth a damn in a good team. I really wish Kanto had more things like this in it. This is the real power of Johto. No way! How the heck did I lose to you? Alright. Here, take this. It's the Earth Badge. 16 out of 16. So what's next, you might wonder? We'll find out. With this badge, you'll be able to use the HM move Rock Climb. Here, take this as well. It contains Trick Room. It allows slower Pokemon to move before faster Pokemon for a while. It's a very tricky move, isn't it? Hence the name. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 31, now that we have all 8 gym badges in Kanto, we're gonna go return to Professor Oak and see what he has waiting for us, since he said he would give something to us when we got all of them. See you guys then.